Actually, just cracked. Just cracked out of our gourd, huh? Easy. 7 minutes, 40 seconds. It turns out we were all wrong. No, legit. Every single person was wrong. Bloodwave is somehow stronger than we could have ever possibly have imagined. Pay special attention to the little add-on I have floating there. What you're currently looking at is a character who quite literally cannot survive being in Torment 4. I have 0 armor. I have negative resistances. Oh, and on top of all of that, all of my gear is broken. But how is it possible that not only am I surviving, but I'm thriving? And just as a quick little peek behind the curtain here, I'm going to go ahead and finish this tier 65, world tier 4, tier 65 pit in just about 5 minutes. This is the strongest the Necromancer has ever been. And I think we may be approaching Season 6 Vessel of Hatred Spiritborn levels of absolutely cracked out of our gourd. With the addition of the new unique pants Keseme's Legacy, you basically get to transform Bloodwave into a self-homing destruction field that wraps around you, pulling monsters in. Any monsters that get hit by any of the waves take damage, so they can get hit by both of them. And on top of that, it'll do a little mini explosion when the two waves meet. And all of that is all well and good. Honestly, you don't even really need the pants to start approaching this if you actually build your character competently, but the pants will absolutely skyrocket the total damage of your build's output. And while I originally thought that the build wasn't necessarily going to feel very powerful or perhaps very clunky on very low tier gear or even low power aspects, turns out I was completely wrong. When you take a look at the gear that I'm going to show you just very quickly, not to tell you how to build it, because again, we're going to refer to the build guide on Maxroll, but just to really highlight how garbage. I mean, quite literally, I pulled it out of a trash can, slapped a quick little, Santa wipe on it, and tossed it onto my Necromancer. But now that I've gone and hyped it up enough, and you can just very quickly watch me fight this boss, and let's go ahead and talk about the build, how it functions. Use the timestamps down below, just like always. I'm going to be referring to the Maxroll guide that we have. I'm going to have everything linked below as well if you want to go ahead and check it out. But this build will undoubtedly be the envy of every single player in Season 7. And while I hope it doesn't trigger too many people, the fact that quite literally all of my gear is broken is going to be flashing red this entire time, let's go ahead and take a look at the key components of the build. Keseme's Legacy says a lot of things. Bloodwave is now going to form 2 waves. They're all going to hit you right in the dead center. When they do, that explodes. And then on top of that, every time that your wave hits an enemy, they're going to take increased damage. But every single time that we cast Bloodwave, you'll notice that the 2 smash in, do the explosion, and then leave the blood orbs very, very close to you. And this is incredibly important. A lot has changed with the build now that they've functionally buffed, but made Tidal a bit more of a puzzle piece. The Tidal aspect always said that Bloodwave would fire 2 additional waves on top of that. And in addition to this, the additional waves that you fired off would do more damage, but they added on this little caveat that says that you can't cast Bloodwave again until Bloodwave ends. Now, if I were to take off the pants and fire off Bloodwave in a huge line here, you'll notice that Bloodwave takes a very long time to end because it has to travel the entire distance. This is where these pants effectively cut this negative in half, because look at how quickly I can cast it again. Boom. So basically you cut the time in half just from using the pants, get double the damage, actually more than double the damage. And effectively the issue that Tidal adds to your puzzle piece here, like the issue of trying to fit it into your build, is completely alleviated. What this also means is that something that we've had to rely on for a very long time just really isn't that much of a pain point: managing the cooldown of the skill. That's where Fast Blood comes into play. Do you remember last season when everybody was trying to play Spirit Wave and you just needed a perfect Fast Blood and they literally sold for gold cap over 99 billion gold? You don't really have to worry about that anymore. In fact, for me to be able to pilot this build, I don't even need to have Fast Blood on my amulet. But let's go ahead and look at just how quickly we reset the cooldown from casting Bloodwave here. So here goes Bloodwave. We already have 24 seconds, right? So we only have to cut off 24 seconds. I pick up a few blood orbs and we do it. But here's the important thing to recognize. Since we can't cast it earlier, we already can right now, and I haven't picked up the vast majority of the blood orbs on the ground. What this basically means is that the relationship between Fast Blood, how much cooldown reduction you need, and the hard cap, the bare minimum amount of time that you'd ever be able to recast this, all kind of play together in a very easy to manage way, where the gameplay of this build is unlike any of our other top performing. You don't have to worry about, doing like Bone Prison, doing cooldown reduction, and getting perfect gear for Bone Spirit. You don't have to worry about snapshotting a bunch of stuff for Soul Rift or a Bone Storm build. Basically, you just cast the skill, walk through the monsters you're killing, and you've already reset the cooldown by the time you do. I'm quite literally over here. I cast it again immediately. It is actually quite insane just how efficient it is. To touch on that, quite literally, all you need is the title aspect. It doesn't matter what the role is. A set of Keseme's Legacy. It doesn't matter what the role is. It doesn't need to be Ancestral. For you to be in World Tier 4 and dominating, literally doesn't matter what these numbers are. And then a fast blood aspect. Everything else after that point, literally just icing on the cake. So here on the Maxroll guide, Lord Sar has done a great job of bringing this build to the forefront, really showing off like what all of this can really do. And also shout outs to including my original nickname for it, Shadow Surfer. Rest in peace to the damage over time version of this build, by the way. You can do it. It's just like, why would you at this point? But go ahead and check out the actual build guide, because you're going to want to check out things like the skill rotation, the best use options. Basically, we cover everything in these guides, every single thing that you could possibly look for if you're trying to follow along with the Paragon, etc. And then also remember this just very quickly, because it's something that doesn't necessarily come up all the time. We will also include different like checklists for you to go through the entirety of the progression. So, starting off like bare minimum what you need, Ancestral, Mythic, all the way up into pit pushing. And then we'll also do that with our build variants, where we'll discuss the differences and what you need to consider when you're thinking about building into things, what their skill trees might look like, what the differences in the gear, and important things to call out. Lord Sar is using Decompose to be able to pull monsters from range. I'm probably going to be a bit of a Reap Andy here, where I like the addition of not only the attack speed, but also being able to build into generating a corpse, just for those scenarios where maybe your gear isn't good enough. You can be able to pull in monsters with corpse tendrils just to be a little bit safer. We're using Blight strictly for the ability to add on a 20% damage multi whenever we hit a target with it and it stands in the little Blight pool there. Need to be able to generate corpses just so we can have things to target with, not only to consume those corpses for Flesh Eater, but also to be able to target them with corpse tendrils again. Blood Mist is going to be really awesome because obviously like being invulnerable is great, but you get to use it as a mobility option. If you actually build into the Ghastly option here, you get to use it as mobility, so you get to go even faster, and it can kind of help to solve vulnerability for you. Add on to that, the fact that every single time that you overpower, Blood Mist cooldown comes up basically means that you will have this whenever you need it. Once you're actually going into like the final endgame version of this, you can also not only benefit from the crit chance here to be able to make gearing out your character a little bit easier, but also a crit damage bonus after you leave Blood Mist. We don't want Corpse Explosion as well as Blighted Corpse Explosion. That's because they've actually changed the passive Reaper's Pursuit to give you even more damage multiplication for each darkness skill that's on your skill bar. Decrepify with the ability to reduce cooldown from Abhorrent to Crepify on the hyper end, like the pit pushing version of this build. We don't even need to use Fast Blood because we can actually manage our cooldown so efficiently just by triggering this. Then we build down into a bunch of passives. Now, again, remember, since we have Ultimate Shadow on the build, not only do we do shadow damage, but Bloodwave also gains the Darkness skill tag. That means that you can benefit from Gloom, which requires you to hit with Darkness skills, Terror, which increases your shadow damage against targets that are CC'd, and then Reaper's Pursuit, which is going to, again, increase your damage per Darkness skill on your action bar. So with Blight, as well as Corpse Explosion, whichever basic skill you use, and then Bloodwave, that's actually 4 different skills. So this is granting you a whopping 32% bonus damage. Since it's normally a blood skill, obviously Coalesce Blood for damage while healthy, Tides of Blood for more additional damage when we overpower. The really important thing about Coalesce Blood and our damage while healthy is that will increase our stat sheet damage. So in a very rare instance, Coalesce Blood is actually the primary passive, as opposed to dumping everything into Tides of Blood like you normally would. Once you have the endgame Dark Shroud on, you're going to gain a bunch of other passives for free, but until you have that, you do want at least 1 Drain Vitality to gain Fortified status. Being able to generate additional Blood Orbs from Transfusion can kind of be good. You really don't need it. It's kind of overkill. And then Gruesome Mending just to increase your healing, because healing from your blood orbs is actually a really great way to be able to stay alive, since again, you can't rely on having as much barrier as a normal necro build would. Corpse Tendrils to be able to generate blood orbs is a really good way to basically salvage a situation where you didn't successfully cast Bloodwave in a way where you could pick up the orbs, and you need to be able to tendrils everything together just to save yourself some time. You could also use this as a means to be able to apply Vulnerable, but in the end game, if both of those are solved, you actually don't even need to use this point at all. Building down to the outs, obviously maxing out Blood Wave here, Finality since we're casting it all the time, huge Memento Mori as well as standalone bonuses, and then building down into Rathma's Vigor. I'm going to go ahead and show you the Ancestral version of the build, since that's a lot closer to what you just saw me do, and probably what you should expect to be doing, especially since you're going to be progressing so quickly, and you wouldn't be at the point where you've already farmed Ubers and Mythic Uniques. So on the helmet, Heart and Bones for a huge DR bonus, as much cooldown reduction, maximum life, and intelligence as you can stack. Going into the armor, Cursed Aura makes it so you don't have to have it on your bar, so you can fit even more darkness skills there, more maximum life, more intelligence than either armor or res, whichever one you need to hit your caps. For the gloves, this is where you can either stack on your crit chance to hit your cap, attack speed, or just mostly intelligence and maximum life. You're going to be putting Ultimate Shadow here. Again, more damage while fortified. You might think like overpower, right? Overpower damage. You have to understand that on this build, what does he have it up to? Yeah, this is just 14k without elixirs, without incense, and without the bonuses from rune words. So you're going to be sitting somewhere around like 20 to 30,000 maximum life in the end game. The amount of overpower damage that you get just from how overpower works is in the thousands. You don't need that. You need to stack this. Obviously, Kesami's Legacy, there are two different really good stats here. So cooldown reduction is obviously great, but in addition to that, chance for Blood Wave to deal double damage. That means that's very easy to hit it here, as well as on your weapon to reach 100%. For boots, maxing out movement speed is really nice. And then once you're into the endgame though, Exploiters to be able to deal even more damage once a target goes unstoppable. Makes a lot of sense. This will help out a lot too if you're a bit lower on your gear, just because monsters may actually survive long enough to go unstoppable. For the big two-hander, big two-handed mace, more maximum life, int, overpower damage because you can't get a different option here, and then you can go with damage while fortified and chance for Blood Wave to deal double damage. Now, if you got like the god draw here of Kesami's Legacy, and you instead got something like this, like let me just go ahead and show you here. Boop, boop. If you are already at this point, like let's say this is what you got and you didn't need any more chance for Blood Wave to deal double damage here, you could actually go with something a little bit spicy here, which is actually including additional passives. For the amulet, you either want Tides of Blood, Coalesce Blood, or Gloom, and then Intelligence. Here's where you can shore up some of your survivability, like additional res or total armor. And then you're going to be putting Grasping Veins here. This is going to help with a huge amount to be able to max out your critical strike chance and just give you a massive multi. For the first occult gem that you want to toss in here, pretty easy. When you hex a target, you do additional overpower damage to it. This is also going to grant you both armor and elemental resistances, so remember that when you're planning out your build. For your other ring, shoring up your crit chance, more max life, more intellect. Ultimate cooldown is really nice here as well, and then it's where you're going to be putting a fast blood. And again, remember, in the endgame, you really don't even need fast blood, but for you, especially just starting out, don't forget to toss this on. It's going to make a huge impact on your ability to actually pilot the build. Friend of the Bog as an occult gem is going to grant you additional primary core stats, so additional intelligence for more damage and res, additional maximum life, and permanently unhindered. For the last ring, you're going to need at least one source of lucky hit chance to be able to apply vulnerable. This is just going to make it so that you don't have to worry about like using just inefficient systems to be able to apply this for you. You can do it with your witch powers for right now, but it would be really nice to actually have it on a ring. And then there are a couple different options here. So Vehement Brawlers is not only going to increase your damage by 30%, which is pretty nice, but it's going to grant you additional ranks to your actual Blood Wave. This is going to be representative of somewhere around like a 40% damage multiplier in total, and it's also going to further decrease the cooldown of Blood Wave. You can also go with just like the strictly stronger option, which is something like the Damned aspect for a 55% damage multiplier. I don't really think that you need more cooldown in practice, especially now that I've proven this with like the absolutely trash tier gear that we got. And then probably the most important occult gem here is Voice of the Stars. Voice of the Stars is going to make it so that your ultimate skill has all of the different tags. So Eldritch, Growth and Decay, and Psyche. That means any witch powers that you use will apply their damage bonuses to your ultimate skill when you use it. And then in addition to that, just acts as a straight up multi for ultimate damage. I'm not going to sit here and go through all of it, but if you want to check out the Paragon, the Mercenary setup, as well as the Witchcraft setup and the best options here, you're going to want to check out Lord Sara's build guide on Maxroll. Again, the planner is down in the description below. Cheers to him doing all the work. Thank you very much. If I come up with any differences, like if I innovate on this in a different way, I'll probably end up changing the link down there. I don't think that I really will, and anything that I come up with or Sara comes up with will make its way into the Maxroll guide. So basically, this is going to be your one-stop shop. You're going to want to go ahead and pin this guide, which remember, you can actually do that on Maxroll. You can do that right here. Pin the page. If there's ever an update, you'll get a notification when you pin the page, and check this planner as well, because the planner is going to get updated before anything else will. So now that I've ignored my team for long enough, I'm going to go back to progressing on this character, probably fix my gear and maybe put in my Paragon points as well as level up some of these glyphs. Let me know down in the comments what you think about the build, if you're trying it out yourself, how you feel about it. I think it's so awesome that the Necromancer is like finally back at the top of the meta. This honestly has not happened since like maybe season 1, when people kind of had to play Bone Spear to kill the Echo of Lilith, and we finally have a build that goes toe-to-toe with anything else that the game has available to it. Tier 150 is going to be on speed farm tech for this build within a week, no question about that, probably in the range of 5 to 10 minutes, which isn't what the Broken Spiritborn was doing, but just to give you an idea, mathematically speaking, the character that you're looking at right now topped out somewhere around like 100 to 200 million damage with all of my buffs up. And that is to the power of 6 less damage than what it will be doing in the end game. The top end of this is probably somewhere around 2 to 250 trillion damage every single time that we cast our skill. And we cast the skill once every 3 or 4 seconds. So yeah, pretty high numbers. If you're brand new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe here. You don't want to be missing out on any of the updates to the Necromancer. I'm going to be playing every single build just like I do every season, but you may not know that. I'm going to be playing Blood Spear, I'm going to be playing Bone Spirit, Sever, Blight, Minions, everything. And I'll be putting up my build guides here whenever I come across them, when I innovate on them. I also have a Discord. You can check the link below. I have all my build guides in there as well that I keep updated. I'd love to have you there. That's enough of me shilling for myself and yapping. Thank you so much for watching this video. I truly hope that it helps you to better enjoy Season 7 in Diablo 4, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.